Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. And we got some fresh news today about FLR's governance and the new role that Songbird and SGB token will play in the new bicameral governance setup. So this has been in the works for a little while now that Hugo has talked about this, and right before launch, it's good to see the foundation, some information coming out about them, because that is who is going to guide the community. But let's get into what this means for those who have SGB and what this means for the FLR network and how this is probably the most novel system that we've seen yet in a governance structure. There's no other networks that I've seen that have two layer ones that are actually separate from each other, but are bicameral. So just like we have the House of Representatives in Congress in the US, and then we have the Senate. Those are bicameral. So there's two bodies of governance. And that's how Songbird's going to work and FLR. But Songbird's going to influence things that happen on FLR. So it'll be this filtration mechanism, and those who hold Songbird are also most likely going to be participants in FLR. So you have the right people holding Songbird who are going to make those decisions. And you actually can earn from this. So there's this really cool prediction incentive structure that's set up. So you don't lose anything, and you're able to stake your SGB, and you still earn your FTSO rewards like you would, but you would stake monthly on different proposals. So every quarter, there'll be a number of proposals that the community puts forth. Now, this will be after the beta testing, after the beta phase. Now, if you stake with one proposal and that proposal has the most staked after the quarter, and then it goes on to FLR and it's voted in, then you'll earn all the other proposals everyone who staked with all the other proposals that lost, you'll earn their FTSO rewards for that whole period of time that you were staked. And they won't lose any of their actual principal assets, but you'll earn all of their FTSO rewards, plus what you earned. Now, if the proposal has the most stake and it fails on the vote on FLR, then actually you lose your FTSO rewards and they go to everybody else who had proposals. So that's kind of interesting. And for those who do lose, whose proposals don't go through, they don't lose any principal assets, zero. Only thing that they potentially could lose is the future interest. So this is really the best way to handle voting mechanisms, because now people have something on the line to gain and they have something on the line to lose, but it's not something that they already had that they're losing. It's not like, oh, I had 100 Songbird and I could lose 5 of them or 10 of them. It's what you would lose as future yield. So I think it's really interesting. And I think voting, you get the most accurate representations of how people truly feel. Like when they read the proposals, they're going to be thinking in their head, well, am I going to do this because it's the best proposal? And there'll be different reasons, but you'll get the accurate answer. Instead of just, if there's nothing on the line, then anyone just votes because they are inherent biases or they want this thing or that thing. But this is really getting down to the narrow focus point of what do people truly feel and how do they think, where they want to direct the network, because that's what the job of the community is. When you're governance token holders, you have to participate in the governance. So it's something that hasn't really been a big focus for most of crypto. It's only been in the past year, 2 years. We've seen DAOs pop up. Now, what's unique about FLR is that it's a layer one that's also basically a DAO. And then Songbird has a little different governance structure. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. But I just wanted to throw that out there in the beginning. And I know that might be a little over your heads, but we're going to go through it. So don't worry. Briefly, I just want to touch on the slight delays. This network is being airdropped to one of the largest communities in all of crypto. There's 5 to 10 million people receiving this airdrop. There's over 100 exchanges that they have to coordinate to do this. And doing that is not very easy. So the latest date is January 9th. It's possible it'll be November or December. And I think they have almost all the exchanges, but coordinating that many is not very easy. So I'd rather them launch with all the exchanges and everybody getting the token than instead of 20% or 15% of people who don't get it. That's not fair to them. So I think you get one chance to launch the blockchain. One chance. These are infrastructures that run by themselves. There's no administrator. There's nobody who could say, "Up, let's turn off the blockchain today. Let's close it down, or let's censor it in any way," or like an admin. It just runs. It's the software. And then the governance is actually built into the code. That is a little different than Bitcoin, than Ethereum, than even to an extent XRP Ledger, which has some governance built in, but nothing close to this, because every token holder has one vote. And you're able to vote no matter where your token is. Many networks, you can't vote if it's in a smart contract somewhere, or it's being used, and you have to stake it to governance. Here, they built vote power contracts into the native token. So when you wrap FLR, it comes with FTSO votes, comes with a governance vote, and it comes with the ability to earn the distribution once the proposal passes, and it simultaneously can be used then as collateral. But that governance vote power on FLR, that's for the FLR token, is what's going to be the final votes for FLR. But what we're talking about here is going to be SGB, which is just to get the proposals. So basically, it's a filtration mechanism to filter them through. So this has become so much bigger than when FLR originally launched. Now, nothing has been taken away from the XRP community. It is still to our advantage. We receive the airdrop, and there's many. The community is actually bigger now than it was before the case and the airdrop. It's amazing. It truly is. So there might be negative sentiment on Twitter. People get emotional. They get upset. Oh, it's going to be a dump. It starts at zero. So we'll see what happens. That Aptos blockchain just launched, which is built off of Libra. We're in the depths of a bear market. It really does not matter what the price is. Really, all it should matter for those who are following and who are watching this video is where's maybe I want to get an entry point. That's it. Not financial advice. But what will happen is, like it always happens, everyone will always over-focus on price. And this is a unique situation because what you want to do is accumulate. You have this unique ability to accumulate a massive amount at the expense of everyone else. So there's no APY set. It's based on participation. So in the beginning, there will be the least participation. And what I've seen is a lot of people with the FIP1 proposal assumes there's going to be like some 50, 60% participation. It's not going to happen. Not this community. And the industry average is like 42%. We're lucky we get to 20% within a few months. So those rewards are going to be massive early on for the distribution. But most people will just be distracted by the price. They'll just look at price. But meanwhile, you could triple, quadruple, or more your stack by just literally, at no risk, just wrap to FLR, delegate, and just compound every 3.5 days. And that's all you do. And then monthly, you get the distribution, you compound it again, and do those the first few months with just whatever you get in the airdrop. And that's it. It doesn't need to get complicated. Now, as different dApps come along and different applications, you could then actually deploy. Now, this is where it takes to the next level. And this is what we talk about more on Patreon, is how to build a strategy that goes over and beyond. Because it's all about opportunity. For 36 months, you have to maintain your position in the ownership of the network, as in how much FLR you have versus how much FLR has been distributed and how much vote power is out there. But you have a third way to earn, which means deploying the token and still earning the distribution and still earning FTSO rewards. But in the very beginning, we don't know what dApps are going to be live. We don't know exactly what use cases. And every dApp might have different requirements. So you might not be able to delegate to the FTSO provider of your choice. You might not be able to receive them at the same time. Like every dApp will have its own integration, but they all of them, any of the decentralized dApps, and definitely the FLR product. So the F asset collateral, the relayer staking, and the layer cake collateral with bandwidth providers should all allow for you to delegate and receive the distribution while still using the token. Now, using the FLR token will earn you other assets. That's the key. So the distribution and the FTSO earn you more FLR. But now you want something else. We want to earn XRP. We want to earn BTC. We want to earn other assets. That's the key here, is diversifying your yield streams. And we talk a lot more about that in Patreon. So you can check the link in the description below. We're also going to be launching MickeyBFresh.com website is coming very soon. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be an educational resource for the whole community. And it's going to cover XRP Ledger and the bottom-up approach that is underway in full swing that we're trying to get the community to realize is taking place. There's bottom-up and there's top-down Ripple. So understanding that that's in full swing, just as FLR is going to be our other focus, and Songbird. So those are three, and side chains with XRP Ledger are going to be our focuses on the website. So it's our core community, but with the new things that are taking place, the participation. We're not Bank of America is going to use XRP tomorrow. It's not just not happening. David Schwartz said that. That's a little down the road, but in the meantime, we have the opportunity to leverage ourselves as the community to be one of the biggest ecosystems, be the biggest DeFi. And if they're going to build the best-in-class platform, they have the most money, the most resources, have been around the longest, and then you have supporting ecosystems that they're all going to interoperate. So we've seen the glimpses of the EVM sidechain. We have the AMM. We have hooks. We have NFT amendment just went live in XRP Ledger. So things are rapidly going to change there, and they're going to be in line with the same time when FLR's launching. So it's going to be a lot coming at the community. And when the next run-up happens, it's not just about, oh, I want to hit the top price and get out. You're missing the point if that's what you're doing. We are moving into where you could build the wealth and set up the different yield streams. If you know what's going to be those blue chip cryptos that are going to hold their value and they are building infrastructure. So every run-up is different and it gets bigger and bigger every time, and there's more innovation. So FLR is launching at the perfect time. This is perfect. You want to be in the lull. You want to be in the bear market, and you want to build. So if there's a delay of a month, a delay a month and a half, it doesn't matter. You get one launch. That's it. And you get 100 exchanges with 5 to 10 million people with an existing community. This is unheard of. And you have a decentralized validator set. And you have professional infrastructure providers. And you have a cutting-edge breakthrough consensus. And you have a probabilistic decentralized Oracle system in the FTSO, and you have a deterministic Oracle system and attestation network in the State Connector, and you have a cross-chain collateral asset system in the F asset system, and then you have a cross-chain multilateral bridges with layer cake. And then you have the relayer, which is relaying data that's going to be staking. Like all these things I just named there are all novel products and components that have never been built before. FLR in itself is just an EVM sidechain, EVM layer 1. That alone, if you get an airdrop of, you should be thrilled. So with all these other things, yes, it's going to take time. So don't expect, within a month or two, hey, the price is going to explode. All right, but let's move on to the governance, because that's what this video is about. But I did want to level set with everybody covering the delays. It's the exchanges, all right? FLR has to coordinate 100 of them, all right? I think we've waited long enough. What's another month? So FLR's governance and the role of Songbird. This document sets out the basis for how FLR network will operate. Its governance, including the role of Songbird network within a bicameral governance system. So we have the House and we have the Senate. That's what this is going to be like. So you think of Songbird as like the House in a way, and FLR is the Senate. The FLR Foundation is based in the Netherlands and is a nonprofit organization tasked with supporting the FLR ecosystem. One of its important roles is supporting clear and transparent governance within the ecosystem. So this is the first time in a long time we've heard really details of the foundation. And one thing that's important to just point out here is there's been a lot of different foundations in crypto, many different ones. Like you had Algorand foundations, you have ETH foundations, like ETH Foundation sells ETH. Like they could sell that on the market and just do whatever they want. Algorand could do that. FLRs cannot. Their tokens, they cannot use them to earn. They cannot sell them. They can only do grants. And that's to build ecosystem. And we have the right to dissolve the foundation. There's not many other networks like that. Ask Stellar if you could dissolve the foundation, or even XRP. You can't. But this is built into the code because FLR is a DAO, right? It's a DAO, which means distributed autonomous organization. And you're only able to do that if the smart contracts are built with governance. So the tokens go with the smart contracts and the governance is run by the community. The FLR team and foundation will have no administrative powers once the network launches and the tokens are out there, because then the transfer happens to the validators and it's decentralized. So then there's no more control of the network. But they have to, in the meantime, run this observation period so that the network can be proven to be decentralized. These exchanges are asking, is it decentralized? But there's no clear pathway. There's no regulations. There's no roadmap of how do you launch a layer one network and not sell. They didn't do any public sale. So there's no investment by any user on this network. And they've been able to still decentralize it. And we don't have VCs. So there's no VCs coming in that are going to dump tokens. Same goes for SGB. It's just, the network. They just need more adoption and use with Songbird. So here's where we're going to get some utility from SGB. But the foundation is there to guide us and to help us bootstrap. We won't need the foundation most likely down the road, but in the beginning, they're there. They're not the FLR team. They're independent, unbiased, and they're just there to help the community coordinate and understand the technology, put out reports. That's what they're there to do. You do need that because if you just left it all to the community, otherwise it's going to be then one other entity who's going to do it. So we'd rather have a neutral one that we could dissolve if we don't like it. And I don't see that being a problem, but the foundation can put up different proposals like the first one. So the basic governance process, a formal proposal called a FLR improvement proposal, FIP, is submitted. Now that's what FIP1 is the governance proposal for the distribution. Then there'll be a notice period during which time the FLR Foundation and formal comments on the proposal. This is followed by a voting period with an end date where each FLR token may be used to cast one vote. There will be two criteria attached to the vote: the percentage of yes to no votes of those voting required to pass the vote, and then two, the minimum turnout threshold that is required to pass the vote, expressed as a percentage of the number of FLR tokens in circulation. So routes to governance. There are two routes to generating a valid FLR improvement proposal. And this is a standard way of doing it. Every DAO network, a lot of dApps do this. Not as many layer ones, but there are some, more and more, doing it that have improvement proposals. So ours is called FLR improvement proposals. Firstly, the first way to do it is through the foundation. And secondly, is through the community. For the purposes of security and expediency, the FLR Foundation may submit a FLR improvement proposal at any time. A FLR Foundation proposal can pass with a simple majority vote based only on those who turn out to vote. So that's interesting right there. So basic majority means more than 50%. And if only 20% turn out to vote, it goes through. So these are just the creators' design that they're implementing from the beginning of how the network is built. I think it works pretty well. The FLR Foundation will generally adhere to 1 week notice period and a 1 week voting period. For security reasons only, the foundation may reduce the time frame of these periods. So like say there was an emergency and they had to change the code base and there was a bug or something, and we had to do something that would be like hard fork the network, and we had to vote on it really quick. That's what that's for. That's why it's good to have in the beginning of these networks, they're not yet fully robust. Like launching a network is, standing up all the validators. This isn't launching enterprise software. This isn't launching a platform or an app. This is a network. I saw somebody comparing it to building houses. I mean, you couldn't be further from what they're building here. This is like an engineering extravaganza because it's so many different engineering components. These aren't dApps and protocols that you could just copy and paste from other networks. They're novel, so they have to build the code base and the contracts from the ground up. They're all going to be audited, then they all got to interact with each other, and they're new. So when you have new consensus, new smart contracts, new types of tokens, it's much harder to do than just, for example, I'll use Binance as always an example. Just copy and paste an EVM, 16 validators. Here we go. Throw the proof of stake up, and we're ready to launch. That's what Binance Smart Chain did. Threw the EVM up there. It worked great for them, but long term, it's never going to have the capabilities that you'll see some of these networks like FLR and other networks that are out there that use EVM and do it in a much more advanced way that's going to be better for the future. So, community originated FLR improvement proposals. To avoid overburdening the FLR community with an excessive amount of decisions and votes, FLR's canary network, Songbird, is to be used as a filtering mechanism for community-initiated governance proposals. There will be 4 proposals per periods per year. During each period, candidate FIPs may be submitted on Songbird. SGB can then be staked by any candidate, any user to any candidate proposal. The proposal, if validly conformed with the most stake at the end of the period, then becomes an FIP. If a proposal wins the staking round but is not validly formed, then it shall not become an FIP. So that's like if somebody put up a proposal that technically just didn't work, so that the foundation's like, this won't work. It just doesn't work, and everyone voted on it, but they can't put it through because it just doesn't have a code base. It's just something just majorly wrong with it, and it's obvious. So that's what they're describing there. So they would go to the next highest stake proposal. That's unlikely to happen, but they're just throwing it out there. So that will become the FIP. So now let's get into it right here. The FIP is then voted on by the FLR token holders and will either pass or fail as per the requirements set out below. So now it gets a little interesting. So all of you that held SGB or are thinking about holding more of it or are just accumulating it, here's a way to use it. And I think it's fascinating because we've all dealt with, elections in our lives and voting. And the reason why people vote isn't always because they feel like that's the best candidate. They do it for other reasons. But when you put something on the line, like value, but without risk of losing your value you have, but future value and future yield, that makes it really interesting now because now you get the real answer from those voters, and they're going to vote with more logic than just maybe unbiased or whatever other reason. So, valid proposal formation. An FIP must be validly formed so that the foundation or the community can implement it. A guide for valid formation will be released prior to the end of FLR's beta period when community-originated FIPs become active. All right, so the community FIPs, FLR improvement proposals, won't even be possible until the end of the beta period, which seems like it's far away, 6 to 9 months, but that's, remember, from the start of July. So that's when the Genesis network launched, was in July. So it's 6 to 9 months from there, which isn't as long as you think. So, because right now the validator is already up, the FTSOs are running, they're providing data, the validators are going to get going. I mean, we just don't have the token generation event. We don't have the community yet all out there, but the network is live. I mean, it is doing its thing without anyone earning rewards. There's nobody earning rewards. It's in like observation mode. That's it. So rules for the community proposal types. So we have simple majority here, which is FTSO feeds, if we wanted to change, adding a new network to the state connector. And then this one's really interesting. Setting up a FLR constellation chain and obtaining a state connector and bridge support on FLR. So what does that mean? State as constellation chain. That means another FLR network that has its own state connector, but uses FLR as its token. What does that sound familiar to? The EVM sidechain that just came to the XRP ledger. It's something that uses XRP, but is right there benefiting the XRP ledger. It gets all these benefits of this other tech. It uses EVM smart contracts. Now, this constellation chain might use WASM smart contracts like Polkadot, right? Or maybe it uses some other type of virtual machine. That's the special one for whatever app chain and whatever use case it is. Where we have the EVM as the main one, this is going to allow for multiple different smart contracts to be built out around the FLR network so that we have a constellation of FLR networks coming forward. I think this is really cool. And it only takes a simple majority. So that's 50%, that means. All right. And we'll go through the things at the bottom. Then there's supermajorities, core protocol parameters, inflation parameters, new bridge assets, new bridge network, consensus changes for supermajority or supermajority, and then protocol design. Like this is going to be very difficult. I think it's like 80%. So let's go through it here. So a simple majority decision is a proposition that is confirmed if strictly more than 50% of votes cast are in favor of it. And there is a minimum turnout of 30% of total available supply of FLR tokens. Now, see, this is where this 30% right here, are those wrapped FLR or just the total supply? Because if it's total supply, that would be interesting. But I don't even know how it would read the tokens that are not wrapped. It doesn't even, you can't vote unless you wrap your tokens because you don't get the vote power contracts to be able to vote for governance. So I'm thinking that has to be wrapped FLR. But I don't know for sure. It says regular FLR. So we'll have to find out about that. But that's a question I have. So supermajority decision is a proposition that is confirmed if strictly more than 66% of the votes cast are in favor of it. And there's a minimum turnout of 50% of total supply of FLR. So that was that middle column here. So core protocol parameters, inflation parameters, new bridge assets, new bridge networks. All right, so 66 and 50. So that's 2/3 and 50%. Most of the proposals, it's going to be interesting to see the proposals, actually. I don't even want to comment on that because I think it'll be a healthy debate and it'll be a little competitive because as we go into this and talk about this more here about how you stake your SGB, you're putting something on the line and you could actually earn a lot if you're with the right proposal. And that means you're going to have to actually read through them, understand them, and be like, well, what's one's really best for the network? And then it aligns with what's best for you. This is the whole key to crypto economics. This is what the people don't understand with the proposal. They don't grasp that you're here to participate in the network and benefit it, and it benefits you. You're not here just to get a handout because you held XRP and you're this, prima donna investor who's just going to, freeload and dump on the rest of the community because you're an XRP holder. No, this is a new network. You're here to participate. People got to get used to that. If you participate, you're going to earn like 5, I don't want to say an amount, but it's going to be a significant amount more if you just literally took your tokens, compounded them from the airdrop, and just did the right thing every time at no risk. Yeah. So now we're going to get into the Songbird participation and how you could use your Songbird tokens to participate in governance on Songbird for the FLR proposals and use your SGB to be staked. So rewards from delegation. So whilst, which is a word that Hugo loves to use in these blogs. I just had to say that because I see it all the time. SGB tokens are staked to a candidate FIP. So that's a FLR improvement proposal on Songbird. The staking contract can delegate to the FTSOs, accruing the FTSO rewards. The returns are distributed in the following way. So after I read through this, I actually have a video that was from the Bearable Bull interview where Hugo actually broke this all down, and he does a good job explaining it. And I made it so that it should be easily understood after we go through this, because it is difficult to grasp this just from reading it. So if the winning candidate proposal is accepted by vote on FLR, then the returns of all proposals are distributed to those that staked the winning proposal. So you stake your tokens and you're earning the FTSO rewards over this period of time. And other proposals are out there and people stake to those. So whoever's proposal has the most staked will just have to get approved that it's technologically feasible from the foundation, and then it goes to FLR for a vote. Now, here's what's interesting. If the winning candidate proposal is rejected by vote on FLR, then each proposal other than the winning proposal receives their own delegation returns and additionally receives the delegation returns from the winning proposal distributed relative to the stake ratio of each non-winning proposal. In both mechanisms, returns are distributed proportionately to the staking amount. So nobody will ever lose their principal assets. You're either going to gain all the FTSO's rewards from everybody else, or for some reason, if that proposal loses in the vote, then they lose their rewards and they get distributed to all the other proposals and people who stake to them. So what this does, and we know from voting, I think we've all have experience in life that there's nothing on the line. So you're not actually risking your principal assets, but you're risking future yield and potentially multiplying that future yield if you choose the right proposal. So people are going to be more likely to choose the proposal that makes the most sense to them instead of choosing the proposal that they just like it because that's their asset or something. They'll be more likely to choose relative based on the best information. And I think that's important because it's something, this goes into the whole idea of prediction markets, and they could go further on from this, but this is what governance is. And this might sound like, oh, this is gamification. I could see some people saying, but this is just how this works. These are community governed networks. The community governs it, and you have to align the incentives. How do you get the best information and data out of people when there's something at least on the line? But nobody's really putting anything at risk. So I think this is actually brilliant. Now, this is just one way of how they could do it. And we're going to listen to the video and he'll explain it a little better than that paragraph. I think it will give everyone a better understanding because it definitely helped me too. So governance timing. The foundation originated proposals may occur from the inception of the FLR network. So foundation can put proposals up at any time. Remember, they're the unbiased entity who has no horse in the race. They can't profit from their tokens. They're there to serve the community and to help us, and eventually just wither away as they won't be needed. But they, all these networks, these are large global networks, 5-10 million people, breakthrough cutting edge novel technology. It's just to coordinate it with something like an unbiased foundation is better. It just is, than some single entity. Even though FLR had the technical know-how to build it, the team, they'll go and then have their own business model. They'll build their own products, F assets and layer cake. Then there might be another infrastructure provider company that might be bandwidth providers, and they might build some other interoperability protocol using the state connector. And that's what we want. We want diversity in the builders of the network, because we're going to have that infrastructure builders and interoperability builders, and then there'll be the DApp builders who will build on top, and then there'll be services, and then there'll be compliance, and there'll be consumer apps. But we got to get those lower layers built, because that's the foundation. So FLR built the core, which is it's built on Avalanche, right? It's the code base is based off of Avalanche. There's significant changes in certain components of it. The consensus is based on Avalanche, but they changed it to remove the proof of stake. And also they added in the interoperability protocols, which are probably the most significant. The state connector and the FTSO are the single two most powerful components of what separates FLR from every other network. If there was one takeaway that you ever had to take away from FLR that doesn't have to do with the price or anything like that, it's just understanding that they built these two Oracle systems that other blockchains don't have natively, and they built them into the consensus and into the rewards mechanism instead of proof of stake. That's the most crucial thing to understand, what separates them. And it takes, like, I'm sure many of you have followed these videos, so you know that, but it takes a little reading and effort to know that. So moving on, community originated proposals may occur from the end of the FLR network beta mode. So FLR network beta mode is 6 to 9 months from the original observation period, which I believe started in July. So we're looking at Q1, Q2, 2023. That should end. Probably Q2. And then after that, it's full steam ahead. The community could put up proposals, and at that time, the market could be very different. There could be new innovations. It depends. I think the community will grow and it will mature, and I think we need that time. I haven't noticed anyone really having significant proposals yet before the network's live, and this is what I think will be healthy, is we'll have a discussion before those proposals go up there, and then they could build support. And then when it's time to stake, like, all right, this is what people are behind. I'm going to stake with that one because it seems the most logical and it's best for the network. There might be proposals that aren't best for the network that you think, that maybe are just for some other reason people are putting them up there. And that's where the logic of using something putting value on the line or future yield will get the best accurate vote, because the logical person will vote for what's going to earn them something, right? I mean, I think a lot of people say, hey, we're here to make money, right? So we're here to do, not financial advice, but we're also here to help participate. Because if you could help yourself make money, why wouldn't you? And if you could be at the foundation of a network, if that network is successful, that's how you make that moon money. It's just not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be riding the coattails of Ripple. You might get partially there, but you're not going to get all the way there. It's just a fantasy. But this is the future. If these networks are successful, and the ones that are, and you're on the ground floor, you'll do very well. So who can stake and who can't stake? All token holders may vote on an FIP, which is the FLR improvement proposal, or stake to a candidate proposal on Songbird, except the foundation is barred from voting or staking. So every token holder except the foundation. And I think that's fair. That's not how all networks work. There's been many networks where the foundations vote, they use their tokens, they sell their tokens. They've done some different networks. If you look around, it's hard to find information on them, but if you look at the beginning of some of these networks, just look into Aptos. That was the Libra blockchain that went public and they just launched. Tremendous controversy. There were VCs that funded the whole thing. The price dumped, then jumped and rose back up. But it's got great technology. But every network that I've seen launch, almost all has controversy because there's no real pathway to do them correctly. And it's just mind-boggling to me how we have this community complaining about something for free, and they're building something they're not going to release it if it's not ready 100%. Your money's on the line. Like they want, like the idea is to bring XRP over there. That's a risk. You want to make sure there's the most secure, the most battle tested, the most audited, and that everyone fairly is going to get their distribution. It's not fair if, 30% of the people don't get that. That's just not right. These things take a while to build, and that's why they're supposed to last for decades. They're community run 24/7. They don't shut off, and the community grows. The stakeholders grow. They've built a system where you have more than just validators and users. We have bandwidth providers, we have agents, we have FTSOs, we have nodes, we have validators, we have a whole community that is there from the beginning. It is so difficult to build a community. I think we underestimate how powerful a community could be. Even if you get a couple negative people on Twitter, that means nothing when the networks launch. So yeah, there'll be some sentiment here and there, but I would not let that fool you. And even if they're like some influence in the community, because there's still a lot of people in the XRP community that are learning FLR. All right, so let's listen to what Hugo describes here. Now, this was a couple of months ago in a Bearable Bull interview, which I thought was an excellent interview by Bearable Bull, and he gets it. He gets it with what FLR is doing, and Hugo breaks it down here. Now, just keep in mind, this was a few months ago, but it's literally almost word for word what they explained here, but just with more detail and more insights.
Make Songbird the initiation of community governance. The community may make governance proposals around FLR. They may say, oh, we want to change the interest rate, or we want to change how much the incentive pool is paying out, or we want to add this asset as an F asset, or we want to. So it's important to have a filtration mechanism for how these proposals get to being essentially voted on. Mm-hmm. And one of the core and I think useful use cases for Songbird is a period quarterly, whereby proposals are put onto the batch of proposals in that quarter, and then people stake to those proposals. Whilst they're staked to those proposals, the value of Songbird that is in those proposal contracts can be delegated to FTSOs. Let's think of each contract potentially as a DAO, whereby all of the people that are staked to those contracts are able to control who they're delegating to. The proposal contract is earning the FTSO return, and in that quarter, whichever proposal wins the most staking, then goes to a vote on FLR, where the FLR holders vote on it. The foundation will be involved by giving an opinion proposal that wins on Songbird. But the winning proposal perhaps gets a large percentage of all of the FTSO earnings from the rest of the proposals that didn't win. So there is a negative for staking to a non-winning proposal, and that negative is not earning the FTSO reward. But there is a positive incentive for staking to a winning governance proposal, and that is receiving the FTSO reward from the other proposals that didn't win. So there's no loss of assets at the core level. So you're not losing. If you stake one Songbird, you will get one Songbird back after a year. You just don't get your inflation. You don't get your interest on the FTSO. And so I think that's a useful mechanism.